everyone. Welcome. It's Shiloh Sophia, the curator here at Musea, our Intentional Creativity Museum, and I'm here with my colleague, my friend, and often my teacher, Julie Steelman. Hello, Julie.
Hi, Shiloh. I could say all the same about you.
Yay.
I feel like there's this beautiful energy that has pulled us together, and we just
Mm,
amplify and augment each other so much. And it's just a delightful relationship to have with you.
I'm so grateful and so grateful to have a chance to talk with you about the book and the show that we're sharing with our community. And I just want to start with saying I purchased an incredible print of a jaguar in the Mayan tradition, my sign is a double jaguar, and so I was able to purchase an amazing image of Julie's that hangs in my art studio. So I just wanted to mention that I'm not in there right now, but it's with me all the time. It hangs amongst my icons and stuff. So I love having your work with me, and I know you have my paintings where you are too. I love that.
I do. Yes, I do. I'm all over my house and I use them for altars and other spaces. And the jaguar you have, his name is Marley, is a really, really, really special cat. And he'll be one of the things that I'll talk about in the show on Friday.
Oh, I love it. Well, I wanted to I'm so inspired by the journey from you being a child to where you are now, this evolution of how that call comes in so early. And if no one who's, if most people who are listening right now don't know about you, our students know about you because you've been co-teaching with us, but let's just imagine that we don't know you
Yeah.
and tell us about what happened and what led to the creation of this book and this show.
Yeah, so when I was a little kid, uh, we used to watch Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom as a family every Sunday night. And because I was the little sister, I was always on the floor with my bowl. And mom didn't make dinner on Sunday. It was popcorn and apples. If you want anything else, you were on your own. And so we had these big bowls of popcorn and apples. And back then, we didn't have voice remotes. So I was the one designated because I was the youngest to get up and change the channel on the television. And I would sit there and I would just be like watching lions and leopards and zebras and giraffes, and my heart would just swoon. And it was the first experience of having one of those direct instructions from the universe kind of things where it was, whatever you do, you need to go to Africa before you die. It was like
Wow.
that clear. And little kid's brain kind of looked around and went, well, these people never leave their zip code. I'm going to have my own money. And so it became I have to have my own resources. So no one can tell me when, where, or how, or if that there weren't any blockages. And I don't know why my mind works like that, but that was put me on that trajectory of a little kid saying I need to become financially free so that I can go to Africa. I can stay in Africa. I do whatever I want. I can go back multiple times, but the animals are where I need to be and I need my own resources to do that. And
Love that.
that's really the whole trajectory of my life, was this little kid's intention.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I love that you made that connection because when I think of areas of your expertise, it's definitely in the domain of your relationship with the earth and the animals and your
Yeah.
relationship with stewardship and philanthropy regarding resources. And so when did you end up making it to Africa the first time?
Yeah, so funny enough, I kept thinking about it, and then I lived in LA, so I would drive down to the San Diego Wild Animal Park, and they started introducing lions and stuff like that, and I would go there and photograph and go out in their trucks where they were rehabbing rhinos and do all that, and it was like fake safari, you know?
Yeah.
And and I was like, well, why aren't I in Africa? And at that time I was in University of Santa Monica getting my master's degree in spiritual psychology, and I realized that I had this thing, that this dream felt so real to me, but there was this thing inside of me that kept saying, well, can you really do that? Do you really
Right.
want to do, was I came up against this inner block that I had about it. And then I shifted all of that. And then, I met my husband shortly after this whole journey and cleared all this stuff. And I met him. And then we went in 2007. It was my first time and it was his first time. And then we never stopped going back. I go at least once a year, more like two now. And
What happened for you? Like, so there's the desire, the little child's
yeah,
desire, and then finally the realization of the dream. And what's it about? Because obviously, photograph, they're gorgeous, right? So there's the beauty aspect, but it's so much more than that for you. So,
Yeah.
and I know it's also evolved from that first visit to what it is now. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that relationship of like why is this so important to you?
Yeah. This is so important to me because I feel like, and this is years of, this is after, I can say this after years of like, I don't know what the why was at the beginning, right? We don't know. We're just following what you would call in your world the red thread. This was my, one of my pieces, you know? And I found myself out there. And the more I was out there, the more I wanted to be out there. I found a natural orientation to wild earth, to the naturalness, to there was this divine engineering that started revealing itself to me, that there's this entelechy, which people don't know what that means, is like realized soul,
Mhm.
is that the soul essence is fully realized and lived without question about it. And there's this, it was such a refreshing place to be in the bush because all the conditioned stuff, the conditioned world falls away. And it was about connecting to that source, that the purity of the intentionality of us, of nature, of species, of habitats, and this interweaving. I call the ocean the womb of interconnectedness because when I'm underwater, that's what I'm experiencing. And as a person, it was wanting to dive into what is this manifest world?
Mm,
What is this that's happening here?
mm,
And how can I be? I don't want to just watch them, the animals. I want to be in a lived experience with them. I want to be in a shared encounter with them. And what does
mm,
that look like?
A shared encounter.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. And I know that they tell us the name of the book and a little bit about the book, and then tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
the Entheos.
So the book is Wild Sacred Beauty.
Beautiful.
And
I love
uh,
my copies. I have two copies.
I know, and I have more coming. Yay. And the book is about really about my heartfelt journey of spending deep time in the bush with these animals and them reflecting messages back to me about an awakening awarenesses within me. It's a
Mm,
very different thing than animal communication or anthropomorphizing, which is
right.
projecting human qualities on animals and not having expectations of them, but in a state of honor and reverence. And reverence was really what this whole thing sums up to be, is that there's such purity in who they are. What I mean by that is a leopardess doesn't roam through her habitat wondering if her ass is too big and if the male's going to mate with her, right? And she doesn't wonder if she's worthy or deserving of the antelope that she might take to eat and give to her cubs. And so there's none of that stuff going on. And there's this reverence and respect, and in that world, sitting paw to paw with them, there's um, this kind of transmissiveness that can come
Mm,
through in a different way. So it starts to become a portal.
mm,
And that, for me, the camera looks both ways. And it's my way of seeing through God's eyes, the divine's eyes. And a camera sensor is my intentional creativity. That's my canvas.
right.
Nature gives me content.
Right. And I know you often get the most unbelievable shots. And even if you're with a group of people, they're like, how did you get that? And we didn't. Like, you have this really special relationship with the energy and what becomes available, right? Like,
Yeah.
what becomes available in the moment when you're with life, that kind of life.
I think what comes available is we remember our wild essence or our wild instinct, that pure instinct, that thing, that kind of knowing that it could only come from soul level or entelechy, where you you I call it fierce clarity, where
Mm.
you know you can't do anything but that you need to follow that guidance. And we've all made enough mistakes not following this kind of guidances that we've learned the cost of not doing it, that
Mm.
when it comes in that type of resonance. And so, I think that this state of reverence that happens to me anyway, I don't expect anybody to do what I do.
Right.
that state of reverence is what I want to share. That these images, what you're seeing that moves something inside of you, is because we met in a state of reverence.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like that about my relationship with you.
Yes, and in the painting, in whatever, everybody has that sort of portal of resonance, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And there's this wild essence, and I think in the conditioned world, in the impositioned world, in the modeling that we see as human beings, part of our weaknesses or fallacies is it's really tempting to worry about belonging or fitting in or editing in a way so that it's pleasurable to others. And
Hmm.
we forget about that inherent essence that came here to do and be and express something in its own state of reverence. And when we do that, then all the creative solutions that we need for being generative stewards of the planet, for knowing what to do, to having the capacities to hold the kind of ecological grief that we feel, and to love at the level that we love and care at the level that we care, but also be in a type of action that is replenishing and balancing,
Hmm.
not creating new imbalances.
Right.
That's the kind of world I want to be in.
I love that. And I know that's the world that the field that you're creating in relationship
Yeah.
with the animals in your own consciousness. And so I know that people ask you about, the ecological aspect or the safari
Yeah.
aspect or the, people coming from the United States to Africa aspect of how that, that's like part of the sacred responsibility. And I know that you do lots of work for, I don't even know whether it's conservation or how would you even describe the kind of
Yeah.
animal and earth-based activism that you're up to these days.
Well, so a lot of what we were just talking about is what's in the book is those heart woven stories with what I see, and also the impacts and effects with scientific data. And so all of that impacts me. Every time I hear something, I feel implicated. One of the stories that I want to share is my mystical encounter with a rhino horn, and this incredible encounter that I had up close and personal at night, and then to find out the following morning they were going to take all the horns off the animals because poachers had been on the property. So immediately I feel implicated. What can I do? And vetting organizations where they're actually doing the kind of work that matters to the balancing. I'm really about the balancing. So I look at, yes, if I'm on the planet, I have impact. I'm in their ecosystem, I am having impact. I'm not benign to that. So I get involved. A lot of times it's photography based. The marine mammal stuff is hands on, bringing seals and sea lions up and out and rehabbing, tube feeding them, restraining them, disentangling humpback whales. There's also the cheetah cub that's on the cover of the book is from a organization called Samara, and she is a heart-centered woman who this is her greatest passion, and she's single-handedly rehabilitating cheetah DNA in Africa. And I'll talk about Chile, her one of her primary cheetahs, and how resourced she is. She had
Mm,
5 cubs, and then she adopted 3 from her daughter, and it's an involved story,
mm,
but she could have abandoned them, but she didn't.
right.
And for a cheetah to bring up 8 other animals, it's an
Mm,
extraordinarily difficult task to do that successfully. And
mm,
so traveling there, giving them money, doing those kinds of things, being involved, telling their story, sharing it, is
mhm,
all part of the, generative stewardship, and having vetted them that what they're doing is a balancing action. They're not
mm,
creating imbalances.
mhm, mhm. And that there's awareness about that,
Yeah. And there's,
and that unfortunately we're in that reaction mode to not only
yes,
the poachers who are trying to
yes.
get these precious resources from these precious beings, but also the climate change and how
Habitat
things
encroachment.
are
Yeah.
shifting, and
Yes.
it's so, I mean, there's just so many nuances. And as you're talking to me, it's so amazing because I'm actually seeing just like different images of trees and animals, and like, so just allowing my own,
Hmm.
um just listening to you talk about it, how it sparks for me, and also thinking about, the care and you going to Africa from the perspective of the story of coming from Africa and that return home
Yeah,
to
and
that land.
it's a I come home to because I've thought about moving there, and I come home, it goes and go into the contemplativeness of that.
Yeah.
because I'm so touched when I'm out there.
Yeah.
I can't always articulate it, but the energy, the transmission, and then it's like, and there are moments when it's been really clear in the field what's happening. But yeah, much like, what you do in your process, this is speaking to me and touching me in a whole different kind of way. It's my connection to the divine.
Yeah.
My late husband used to say, nature is my goddess. And yes.
Mm, I
And
love
that
that.
wild essence that we have, there's an instinct and intelligence in that. And I've learned over the years that what other people might call rebellious or being a maverick is me following that line of energy. And by the grace of guidance, right? Not knowing what I was doing.
Hmm.
And now I get to live this life that is deeply passionate, but I also have to have space for the hard stuff that I see because there's
Hmm.
plenty of it and they go together and we
Hmm.
can't ignore it. And I think we have to, I'm wanting to do this in
Hmm.
service to a planet forward consciousness and curating that.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And sharing the images, I think for me, I've always been like, just like gaga over the cats. I went to the
Same.
circus as a young person and saw the cats and got the book, and that was literally like a highlight memory that kept for years and years and years and years. Like I was over the moon. Like that was a relationship in that moment like I'd never been to before, and that was before I knew about all the stuff. But like as a child, I was just like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
wow, you know. And so there's something for me personally about looking at photographs that someone I know has taken. I know you were there. So there's like that removal of just looking at like in the calendar or on the poster or whatever. So I feel like I'm calling people to explore Julie's work from that perspective of like you're a part of this community, she's a part of this community. This is the way she's doing her intentional creativity. She also paints and teaches and does other things, but like to just know that when you're looking at these rhinos and these whales and these tigers and the bears and the penguins, it's like oh my gosh, that you are looking through Julie's lens of someone that is a trusted member of our community. And so I just want to call you all to that awareness as you experience not just the image, but the essence and the energy. And then that connection that Julie's making too about just the wild sacred beauty and not the anthropomorphism part of it, but like
Right.
for us, we also have lost our own wild sacred beauty awareness of ourselves. And a lot of intentional creativity is trying to get people to
Yes.
trying to invite us um,
Encourage.
to remember, encourage that most innate
Yeah.
aspect of self, which is often taken from us as we're growing up.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you just described of going to the circus and feeling really touched and excited. That's why the word entheos, why I called it this, because I feel like we're being called and I'm excited about that because
Yeah.
we're finally listening, because the grief has gotten to a place where it's activated our deep care and we're still a little immobilized. And well, let's shake that off.
Mm.
But entheos comes, Entheos is the base Greek word for the word enthusiasm, or said another way, our English word enthusiasm comes from the Greek word entheos, which
Mm.
means the divine within. And I think when we get that active joy, like you were describing, that's what this is about. And connecting to the spiritual essence of Wild Earth is
Mm.
about reawakening our wild essence within us so we can play our part in the habitat that is needed.
Mm. It's so beautiful and such a call to action. And I love a call to action through beauty, because there's many different calls to action. Like when we go to the United Nations, most of the calls to action are through horror.
Yeah.
And so we really digest a lot of the horror as the motivator.
Yeah.
And then when we do our movies and our slideshows that we do there, people come up to us after and are like, "Thank you. This is the only beautiful thing that I have seen," and it
Yeah.
helps me digest the horror because
Yeah.
it's horrifying what's happening to the planet
Absolutely.
and to the creatures and to the women and children of the world. So there's a way that I feel like in intentional creativity that we're calling to action through beauty instead of through devastation,
Yeah.
and hoping that that motivates us in a different way, or activates that entheos, activates that different part of ourselves. Because if we're constantly being moved through the shame and the guilt, which is also a part of the implication, but how is it different if we're moving through the beauty?
It just, we can all relate to trauma. We
Yeah.
can all relate to that. And there's a, I think we're still mastering the art of how we catalyze that into fuel versus bond over our wounds about it. I think intentional creativity is one of those innovative tools for that.
Yeah.
But I think the beauty allows us to connect to that reverence. And
Yeah.
when we're in that channel,
Mm,
that wild essence, that thing that only we could be downloaded with,
mm,
has space to come through.
mm.
And it's like, do I know the solutions to climate change and all that? I don't, but I'm linking arms with the people who do. And I
Right.
want to be the igniter that is going to envision and hold you in what you know, what your piece of it. Because we're not, no one's going to get, no one person's going to do this.
Mm,
It's, we have to do it together and we have to stand up together.
mm,
And so, very potently, each one of us is carrying a piece of the solution, and we need to link arms with each other and hold each other and do it with courageous compassion.
mm. I love that. Thank you so much for that, and thanks for listening to my story about the big white tiger.
Yeah,
And because I was so young, I really felt like I had a relationship. Like
you
in the
did.
seat, I felt like I did, and then I had the image, and in my imagination, I was with this being like for years or something, and no
Yes.
one had spoken to me about anything like that. But it was really such a strong relationship. So I just love thinking of that right now and connecting that back, to this moment. And I know that the culture does all kinds of things about totem animals and the animals we have. I mean, there's so many conversations to have at the level of animal right now and how we're
Yes.
being with it.
Yes.
And it's there's so many layers to just sort of unpack. And I know you have kitties too, and I feel like I've decided to have this different relationship with the kitties and just see if they
Mm.
respond, right? And just the change in 3 days of how I'm being
Wow.
is just like,
Hmm.
okay, wow, like you are right here, and you don't care if I'm doing it or not. But now that I am doing it, you're like, okay, this is what we
Yeah.
want. And so I feel like when I'm connecting with the kitties, I always feel like I'm connecting with the bigger kitties from which they came.
Yeah, and most of our domesticated cats came from African wildcats, and they are the same size, and they're mostly tabbies and live in trunks of trees and stuff like that. And like,
Amazing.
yeah, it's the divine feline. What can I say?
Right.
Right?
I
I'm
know,
like,
right?
you know, and the cats are, and they're fierce.
Yeah.
And if you ever see them doing what they're doing to eat, you might not like it, and it would appear to us to be violent, but there's a natural thing happening there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
that
such
I want to really, in this, my intention is to share some of these really up close and personal encounters that I've had, and
awesome.
the mark they've left on me that has been information that shaped my life.
Mm,
And their love language, if you will, is energy and instinct.
mm.
And they use more than their five senses to know that.
Yes.
And I've
Yes.
adopted cat characteristics now where I'm like, I can see out of the sides of my head, and like, I'll see lions and people will be like, there's nothing there. I'm like, no, there's a lion there. And then they back up and they're like, there's lions there. And no one else saw them. It's
Mm.
just this interesting
Yeah.
thing.
Makes
And
me
it's
think
like,
about the field of the heart, how the heart
right.
registers, and
Yeah.
they know when we're there.
And
So
that's it. Cause I get pinged in my heart before
mm.
my brain or eyes see anything.
Yes,
And I'll be like, there's lions right there. And I'm not even looking.
that's the visionary heart. I love that, Julie. Yeah, because I mean, it is so that the heart is many things, that an organ of perception is one of them that registers the field, and they also register the field.
Yeah.
It can hear you and feel you. It's really fascinating. And I love that you've taken this care and this time to put the book together and then have worked with the Intentional Creativity Museum to bring forward a museum show of your work honoring Earth and your relationship with these incredible beings that you have honored. And somehow um, it feels like a global honoring that the book and the show is like this awareness as we think about intentional creativity is so much more than just what it is. Like if I'm
Yeah.
painting a painting with a prayer for healing for the world, I don't think it's woo. Some people do, but I actually feel like that's going out in some
Oh
way.
yeah.
And imagine if all of the people who made music and paintings and art didn't think that way and just stopped because they didn't think it was making a difference. Well, I'm feeling like that about the book and the show right now, that somehow it's just sending that field of awareness and that love
Yeah.
out
I
and letting them know that we're paying attention.
I agree. It's paying attention at a different level. There's the needing to pay attention at the being resourced or how many likes you have and all that and how much reach and blah, blah, blah. And then there's paying attention at a level that these guys are paying attention at, that the earth is paying attention at, that the
Right.
divine is paying attention at.
Right.
And I want to really empower people to understand what's being reflected to them and what they see.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be what I saw.
Right. Right. And will you share with us, just because I know that you're so steeped in intentional creativity and you've photographed before intentional creativity and then after
Oh,
intentional creativity,
oof.
what do you feel like the distinction has been?
Let me see if I can put this into words. Well, first of all, this was a Color of Woman final project that took a couple years to get to, and there's the circle support that of you and everyone in that sees the vision and say yes, do that. And
Mhm.
so I can't say enough about how that I because I held all this stuff. To me, this was my sacred work. I didn't share it with a lot of people. I
Right.
didn't want anybody stepping on it or saying things or having to work out their stuff about what they saw with me,
Right.
and all of that. And I think it's been very permission based and it was very affirmative. And now how I'm different after this past July, I spent 6 days and 6 nights in a meadow with 30, 40 bears in any time I could count with my finger. And it changed me. And it's where intentional creativity had been working through me and then it landed. It just landed and went, this is my camera. This is a mystical thing that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can call me a photographer, but I'm way more of a mystic. The camera's a tool,
Mm-hmm.
and the sensor is my canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I've moved past having the skills and capacity of worrying about the technology. The technology is not in my way anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
so the one who's got an activated motherboard who knows how to do everything with a finger and a thumb on my camera is can be very connected
Mm-hmm.
to what's going on the other side of the lens. Put the camera down, look at the bigger picture. What are the pictures inside the pictures? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like it it has become nature's my canvas.
Yeah.
And what is it informing? What is it sharing? What is it transmitting? What is it, where is it that I can grow and it's reflecting something to me about that?
Yeah. Beautiful.
And so I see really differently because I see through my heart instead of through my mind of I want that action shot because it's going to give me 34,000 Facebook likes because I used to
Right.
do that, right? Or I want that photo because I want to put it in a competition. It was very mental,
Right.
physical world reality.
Right.
Now it's very what's being shared with me.
Mm. It's a sacred relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And I
there's been a
know.
distinctive difference in those images. And
Mm.
I've even tested it where there's good photography versus the ones that had an imprint on me.
Right.
The
Totally.
ones that had an imprint on me do way better in commentary and what people say about it
Mhm.
than the ones that are great photography.
Totally hear you. Because the essence, that's the wild sacred beauty aspect, right? It's not like
Right.
the perfect shot to hang on your living room wall.
Right.
It's actually the one that's transmitting the wild essence that we were privileged enough to behold. and that
Yeah.
you beheld it and you're sharing it with us and awakening us to um, the activism, the heart-based activism that's needed, and in your case, the generative stewardship and
Mhm.
philanthropic work that you dedicate your life to, and that photography is like the mystical photography is like sort of the art form, but it's actually the outward manifestation of an inward reality that you then also play out in all the work you do on behalf of Earth and behalf of waking up humans and behalf of the creatures
Yeah.
that you get to spend time with. What a privilege to spend time with them.
It's beyond a privilege. It's beyond a privilege when I leave Africa, when I have to leave, when I get there, I'm like a little kid in a candy store. When I have to leave, I cry as I'm getting on the plane. Like I'm sob. People think there's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good." And I just have to plan coming back before I leave because like COVID hasn't let me do that so much. But um, yeah, it's I know I can't live there, but I can't stop going there. And I know what's going on politically with the Masai Mara and the Serengeti, and it's the Chinese for years have been trying to build a road through all of that. The Great Migration will go away, and so those types of things, I feel implicated. They tug on me and they go, this has to start amplifying out that the people stand up and not expecting the politicians to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, and so as we continue to engage with your work, maybe you can continue to, advocate and share
Yes.
with us actions we can take that are real time. Because as you know, there's so many causes right now.
Yes.
It can be challenging to know where to focus. And
Yes.
so I think the specialized links with specialized recommendations that are time sensitive, especially like within the circuit of our community, can be really helpful.
Yes.
So we'll continue to look to you to share with us about the wild sacred beauty and that enthusiasm that we have. So thank you so much, Julie, for joining us
Yeah. Thank
for
you,
this
Shiloh, so
conversation.
much.
Yeah, looking forward to sharing the work with all of you. Blessings.